Okay, we're just doing mic tech test. Perhaps while we're gathering, we only have another minute till 4 o'clock. We're going to have Jim Meyer talk about what he's prepared to do for us on Saturday morning as an announcement, and then we'll go on with our other program.
Joan didn't know she was going to have company today, but that's nothing new. We have our annual living gift market. Now, we don't have, only thing living is those of us working at the table, and some days I'm wondering how. Anyway, um, but you have an opportunity. I have some other pamphlets, some other information. If you'd like to contribute, you can do it then. You don't have to then at any time, obviously. Uh, the My checking account, my bank account is open for you to want to contribute to uh, Heifer at any time. But this is the time I choose for this area. We brought in over $500,000 from this thing that my dad started in 1986. So it has a strong basis uh, for contributions. And so we like to keep people informed. It's something that, my gosh, that's a lot of money for a group this, a town this size. So we're proud of that. And I say we, I mean everybody, because everybody's a part of that. And Saturday morning is our quote living gift market. The only thing living will be those of us walking around, and some not walking too fast like myself, but we'll be still there. And I'll have some other brochures, types of things, and just information. It's impossible to keep up with Heifer and do everything they do, but we're making an effort today to continue with that. And as Joan will explain some things that I will be learning about today. So Saturday morning from 10 to 12 in the by the hub. Hope to see you there.
Thank you. Raise your hand if you've spent some time with Dan West. Oh, we have a group in the back there. I spent a week on the Appalachian Trail hiking along with Dan and a bunch of other people the year I graduated from high school. So if that wasn't a special thing for me to brag about all these years. We're going to start with 3 short videos, and when those have completed, then Joan's going to talk to us about her experiences at Heifer Ranch in Arkansas. Some of you have visited there, and so if there's time at the end, you can share your story or ask her questions. But let's turn off the side lights and watch the video. Turn the rest of the lights back on.
Oh. My wires caught me up. Those pictures that you just saw that were entitled Heifer USA,
You have a mic?
I'm speaking in it.
Do we need to make it higher?
Can Gary do that or?
Maybe. I'll raise it up here. Try again.
Okay. Those pictures that you saw last, entitled Heifer USA, are the place where I was volunteering for 20 winters prior to coming to Timbercrest. Now, that was the place where I volunteered, but it was a different program. Heifer USA is what we finally have been able to put into practice as a program for the United States. Often when we talked with visitors about Heifer and the programs in Asia and Africa and South America, they would say, "Don't you do anything in the United States?" Well, they tried a number of times to start US programs. This one is working. It's located at Heifer Ranch, where I volunteered, and it serves the farmers in Arkansas, Mississippi, and the surrounding areas. So that's the difference. When I volunteered there weren't as many animals and there weren't as many gardens. They were there just, the ones that were there were just there to demonstrate to visitors who came to learn about Heifer. But the place was teeming with school children and college students who came for programs about Heifer. So that's the program that I was involved with. But a little background on this. The land that Heifer Ranch is located on was purchased in 1971, the very year that Dan West died. But it was purchased under the leadership of, well, I'll tell you later. Anyway. So it was the place that was bought so that there was some place to hold animals that your fathers and grandfathers donated. Prior to that, trucks had to just go all around the US collecting animals. Now, with the purchase of that land in 1971, there was some place to hold them while they were waiting for shipment in South America or Europe or Asia or whatever. So it was a different use for it then. But anyway, the Heifer Ranch that I knew, when we first came to Heifer Ranch, it was called the Heifer International Learning and Livestock Center. So sometime during those first few years that we were there, the livestock part of it was dropped off, and it was an educational functioning ranch. So we had programs for kindergartners, we had programs for elementary and high school children, we had programs for college students, we had 3-hour programs and all-day programs and overnight programs, and all teaching about world hunger, world poverty, how it all relates to peace, and so on. So we were really busy in the spring and fall, especially with all of these students who came for these programs. As part of the educational program there at Heifer Ranch, we had a village with houses as they might be in various parts of South America or Asia or Africa, for students to either see in one of their programs and see how other people live, but also they were used for overnight programs when you maybe a group of college students signed up to come, and they were assigned either to the Africa house or the Guatemala house or the any other house. That's, I think there were about 6 houses around the pond, and they stayed all night there with a blanket and pillow if they were lucky. They got the amount of food and the kind of food that they might have at that house, and learned how the other half lives. So that's one of the programs that was there. Now, when I was there, I had 3 different assignments at different times. I was assigned to the visitor center to welcome and discuss with them about Heifer. I was some of the other programs I was involved with were the volunteer coordination. We had sometimes as many as 50 volunteers that would go through this program in a year. And so we needed someone to coordinate all of those applications and all of those people who came in and had to be assigned to housing and so on. So it was a busy time. I also was assigned to the gift shop sometimes, and was able to sell sweatshirts and little silly little pins like what I have on, and so on. So I was there generally from probably about early November until late March, each of the 20 years. It was just a grand experience, both because it was Heifer, and that's a good story to tell, but because of the mix of the volunteers. They came from all over the country. They were college-age students, and they were retirees. So it was just a grand mix of people living together and working together and just really having a good time. So, do you have any comments about what you know about Heifer, and or any questions that you have?
Gary's he's got this mic turned on. And Jim,
Oh,
I
good.
think I want you to tell us what you told Joyce before the program, but we'll get a question or statement back here.
I have a question about funds. If I were to donate, which I've done before, let's do it in terms of hundreds of dollars, $100 to Heifer, how much of that goes for administration?
About 25% only. I have not checked that number recently, but generally what we were able to find out when we were there was that 25% was administration and education. The other 75% was programs.
That's correct.
And it's a pretty good number in comparison organizations.
Did you want to say something? Alice has a big history of supporting Heifer, and so do all of you. What we were talking about was the transportation and the purchase of the animals now. And you want to say they purchase these, we don't ship them like we did with Faith the cow and those early seagoing cowboys. How does Heifer use the money?
They don't know exactly the details, but they first of all, they buy animals in the country in the location where they're going to live, and they're already, the word is used, climatized. So they buy climatized animals and then distribute them to those that need it. Make sense?
Right.
Yeah.
Here's a question back here.
It's not a question, it's an experience. My experience with Heifer goes back into the 40s and 50s. My family came from Maryland, and Olive and Roger Rube was a farm on which the heifers were kept that were shipped out of the Baltimore harbor. And so we would go out to Olive and Rogers to visit about every other year, and I'd spend some time walking out in the fields among the heifers that didn't have long to be in that field, but they were going to be shipped overseas.
And there are thousands of those experiences. I didn't realize it, but I understand from Peggy Rife, that there are over 1,000 cowboys who accompanied animals on those ships. It was amazing.
Yeah, my grandfather was one of those cowboys, and he met with another man in Greenville, and cattle had been shipped into there, and they were loaded on a railroad car, and or maybe more than one railroad car. Anyway, my grandfather and the other man rode in one part of the railroad car, surrounded by bales of straw, so that the cattle would not bother their sleep. But my question was earlier. It must have been mostly cattle, pregnant cows, which were shipped.
Yes, that's true. But there were a lot of horses.
Yeah.
Horses early on went to Poland
Okay.
because they were still farming with horses
Yeah.
at that time.
And they were these. I don't know where these weren't shipped, but they were supposedly shipped. The cows, pregnant cows, were shipped so that would increase the genetic mix of the
right.
local cows.
Yeah.
But if it was going to be continued in that way, they would need new bulls of good genetics to re-impregnate a cow after it had a calf.
Well, I don't know when they began doing artificial insemination.
I'm sure they did. I'm sure they didn't, because this was back in probably 55.
Right. Yeah. Okay. One more.
After Jean retired, we were able to take a trip to South Africa to visit an exchange student that we had had. And one day while we were visiting her, we went with her on her job, which was to go out into the townships, they call it, out in the countryside, and work with women who were doing craft kind of things to earn money. Well, while she was working with them and we had looked around that facility, we went out for a walk outside. We're walking around the perimeter of that property and looked across the fence, and there was a sign which nearly knocked us off our feet, Heifer International. So of course we trudged over there and talked to the people there, and they were blown away that we actually knew Dan West.
I had a similar experience in Thailand. We stopped at a little shop where they were selling their crafts, and apparently some of our group had heifer shirts on, and one of the women said, you heifer? You heifer, I got cow. And then another one, yes, I got a goat, yes. It's just wonderful.
In 1958, I was at a heifer distribution in Austria, and that was a real exciting experience too. We have one more person and then we'll be excused.
My father, Bob Eby, was serving in his first pastorate at the Woodland Church of the Brethren in Michigan. And he heard about the opportunity to go as a seagoing cowboy. And someone, I think it was the chair of the ministerial commission, had already gone, but at least someone from the church had already gone, and told Daddy, if you want to go, we'll make it happen. He had a 6-week leave of absence. There was a maritime strike going on in Baltimore. He was told to be prepared to leave on 24 hours notice. Anyway, he got notice then when to leave. They thought the strike would get settled. So he was on his way within the 24 hours and got out there, and the strike had not been settled yet. So on the 6-week leave of absence, I think he was there at least 2 weeks, maybe a little longer, before the strike got settled. When his ship started out, they got it out into the bay and they collided with a fuel tanker. He had to come back and get ship repairs. He was gone 3 months on a 6-week leave of absence. And the church was very supportive. I was 3 years old. I thought I should be able to go with him. I could take my little red chair and sit on it.
I think we ought to have a heifer discussion group here that meets once a month to tell us all the stories.
Yes, we have to hear from Lois
about
yet.
heifer.
Are the heifers still donated?
The money is donated. Yeah.
Yeah, the money that we share, and it's certainly a lot more than just heifers now. They have a lot of animals. And like Jim said, they are purchased closer to where the people in need live. And so that we don't need the transportation and the other things. Well, thank you all for being here. Next week, we have Pam Haynes coming to play the piano for us. That'll be great. So,